Ms. Knight, do we have individuals or groups to address the board?
Yes, we do. She's here to discuss music education in the schools. And she has a esteemed visitor with her, Miss Ann. So you ladies are welcome to, if you'd like a seat, we'll get you a seat down.
No, we're not gonna be that long. We don't have that long.
And Mr. Nelson can kind of tell you.
Well, we normally give 5 minutes to state what you want to state, and we will just listen.
Okay. You wanna go ahead? I will. I wrote notes down because I don't talk well. I sing better. Right now, I wish I could have been some form. So, but anyway, we're here to ask you to consider reimplementing music into daily lives. Music is a catalyst for learning. It is woven into almost every aspect of our lives. It is academic, it is physical, it is emotional. Music can prepare students to learn, cultivates thinking skills, facilitates academic achievement, including math and reading, and helps develop creativity for lifelong success. Music is timeless. Music is for all. We hope that you will consider music as another avenue to rekindle student learning as we move toward a post-COVID-19.
I'm a graduate of Robbinsville High School and went through 1 through 12 and have a master's degree in music education. I've taught bands and chorus and different things in my life. Never got out of it, but anyway, there's a certain type of child that just relates to music and art that doesn't relate to other things. And a lot of times I've run across these children where they just made the day for them to be able to, go to a music class. And this foundation, this elementary music class is so important because it gives the students, hey, I like music, I want to go in band, I want to go in chorus, I want to go in the church choir, I want to go into music in the community. So it's just a real important foundation, and we think it's just a rounded curriculum where you have the music and the art, and we shouldn't leave out our music in the elementary schools.
It levels the playing field. There, all students of every educational ability can relate to music.
Now, can I say something?
Sure.
You are preaching to the choir.
Well,
When someone asks me who my favorite teacher was all through school, I always say Barbara Blair. She was my chorus teacher in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. She's dead now, and I miss her. And music in school, like you just said, one of you, I can't remember which one, that's the only class that I really enjoyed going to. That and school being out and going to play ball. That's the truth. I'm just telling you the way it is. And music meant a lot to me. I've sung in the church choir since I was 12, and I sung in choruses 7 through 12 in school, and it just meant a lot to me. And I just wanted to share that with you. I agree with you. Unfortunately, Ms. Knight will tell you we do not have the money to fund for teachers. The state doesn't give us the money to do that. And I
And I think that's a loophole in the state budget, that they don't make appropriations for those special teachers like they used to. But we do know the research supports that learning music at a young age, and art for that matter, how that develops the brain more fully, how it helps them in everything they do in life to make them more well-rounded.
And there's a big connection between music and math.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
There's a big connection there, so.
And I do know that it will help us strengthen, we have a new band director, she was here last week having the same conversation, that she felt like that the Youth Foundation and music education prior to her getting kids in 5th and 6th grade would keep her from having to do 6 years worth of music ed when she gets there, because they're so far behind, having not had a good foundation in music prior to that. So we know that it would also build a program that we have existed for upper elementary, middle and high
Yeah,
school.
we know money's an issue, we knew that before we came in, but maybe we can find some somewhere.
Well, and it's certainly not that it's not on our radar to do so.
So we appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. Good to see you, Mr. Stiles.
We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
All right. I guess I have to go ahead and leave this, even though we don't have a public. The floor is now open for public comment period.
Hold on a second.
He told me to hold on just a second,
Making sure
there's nobody out there. Do I have a motion to close public comment period?
Close.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, reports and discussion items, and A is audit report. That'd be Lester.
Are there any non-reports?
You might want to tell those folks when my part comes, they might not have to see. Today we have with us Adam Superior. He's with Anderson, Smith and White, and they've done our fiscal audits for the last several years. He's here to present the audit findings for fiscal year 2020. Just want to say that we appreciate working with Adam, Pete, Pete Spell. Their audits are very structured. They come in here in 3.5 days. Most of their audits are school systems, and that's very professional. They respect our time, and we just enjoy, if you can say enjoy an audit. We enjoy having an audit with these folks. But thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Everybody should have a balance of statements and 2 letters. First of all, the stapled 3-page letter, that's just a letter addressed to the board. As the governing body that hires us to conduct the audit of management, we just let you know at the end of the audit how it went. And according to our audit plan, we didn't have any difficulties with management. There weren't any accounting policies that we had difficulty applying. Things of that nature. So a standard letter to you to let you know that the audit went just fine. But we also are issuing something new this year. We have a management letter. We did note one, I don't want to say finding, but one issue that we think can offer some improvement. It's the 1-page letter. This is what's called a management letter. This is just an item that the management can work on going forward. And I apologize for the lengthy paragraph, but I did want to reiterate a couple of the points within that paragraph about what we have going on here. So the state textbook PRC, it's a funding source where the state DPI provides you with dollars to buy textbooks, and it carries over indefinitely. So you get it and you never lose it. And the way DPI operates doesn't always make sense. So they award you this allotment in PRC 130. But they want you to write the check out of PRC 131. And that's changed. That's new in the last couple of years. So you actually have to do a transfer of cash to 131 and then write the check out of 131. This year we noted that you bought textbooks, you wrote the check out of 130. And so where you thought DPI would reimburse or pay for that textbook, they essentially never funded that PRC because it's a non-cash PRC. So, and it's reflected in the audit that you owe $50,000 back into state to refund and repopulate the PRC 130, but it's money that you won't lose. You just now have an extra $50,000 of state money to spend on textbooks next year. So again, a long paragraph to let you know there's just a mistake. Check right now the wrong PRC, but it did not result in any lost money. you just spend it out of one pocket instead of the other, but now you'll be able to spend more out of the pocket you thought you were spending it out of. So it will work out. You'll have, again, an extra $50,000 of state textbook money available. So, all right. Now if we go to the bounds booklet. I always like to start on page 1, because that makes the most sense. So page 1 is our independent audit report. This is the opinion report, the culmination of the entire audit, letting you know that we believe these financial statements are accurate. And that's really what we're doing. We're here to tell you that we think the statements are accurate, not necessarily whether they're good or bad, whether you had a great year or a bad year, but we sprinkle that information in by pointing out a few numbers. So I'll present and go over some numbers, but the main focus and the main point of the audit is to let you know that the financial statements are accurate and that we had no issues with internal controls or compliance findings, how you spent state and federal money in it. Those were all in accordance with the program. So this letter and 3 letters in the back all state that. They're all considered clean, unmodified opinion letters with no internal control findings and no compliance findings. So again, a clean audit. This booklet contains 70 pages of information that accountants love to have, and every year they add more and more information, and I don't know that it always necessarily adds value to the average reader or to those managing a school system. There's a lot of assets and liabilities that just keep getting stacked on, like the pension liabilities, retirement health benefit liabilities. Somebody retires, their health insurance is paid for the remainder of their life. Well, that's a state liability, but accountants want to see your portion of that liability allocated on these statements. So you end up with a tale of 2 statements within here. And so there's the first 2 exhibits, which include those assets and liabilities. It includes the value of your buildings. The value of your buildings has nothing to do with how much you can spend on textbooks. The amount that the state is going to pay in retirement benefits over the next 80 years has nothing to do with your fund balance. So the first 2 exhibits add on a bunch of these assets and liabilities that kind of cloud, the good information, the pertinent information. So I always like to look at Exhibit 3 on page 13. To me, Exhibit 3 and Exhibit 4, page 13, 14, and 15, are the 3 most important pages in these statements. This presents your governmental fund balance by fund. So on Exhibit 3, this is a balance sheet of your governmental funds. Your state and federal funds, they don't carry fund balance. Those dollars are use or lose it. There are some carryovers, and then, like I said, the textbook carries over indefinitely, but most of the other dollars, with a few exceptions, they don't carry over. So again, it's use it or lose it. Your fund balance is seen in your general fund, your other special revenue fund, your capital outlay fund, and the individual school accounts, which is the cash at the individual school. You've always operated with a very low general fund balance, and that's no exception here. Your fund balance as of June 30, 2020 is $13,000, down $50,000 from last year. Last year you had $64,000. This year you have $13,000. That's essentially zero. You're in your general fund. You're operating at a break-even point, and you have to. There's very little excess funds in general. Now, what does help is your other special revenue fund. You receive impact aid that goes into that fund, and so your other special revenue fund does have $912,000 of fund balance. That is where your savings, so to speak, is. That's where your fund balance is. Any funds in excess of the, the $1 million you get from the county and some fines and forfeitures and a few other little dollars that come into general, anything above and beyond those funding should be spent out of Fund 8, your other special revenue fund, because there just isn't any fund balance available in general. These two funds used to be combined long ago. They were separated legally, written into law, really to separate money that was from local sources to the school district that should be shared with charter schools. To separate that money from money that is directly given to you, whether it be from federal or other state sources or other sources, the money that you earn, that you apply for a grant, you receive that grant, there's no reason the charter school should get that. If you ever charged your child nutrition indirect costs, if they ever got to a position where they get paid indirect costs, that is a revenue into the governmental funds from child nutrition for their portion of utilities and their portion of just overhead. That money, the charter school should not get a portion of that. So this fund aid was created to move everything that wasn't county money into another fund so you could accurately calculate what the charter school should get. So again, those funds used to be combined, and they're separated now, but really both of these have fund balance available for appropriation. And so again, the bulk of that fund balance is in that other special revenue fund. Are there any questions on that balance sheet? Turn 2 pages to Exhibit 4. This is the income statement, again, for those same funds. And you can see where your general fund collects $1.2 million of revenue. Your biggest funding source, state public school fund, $10.3 million. $1.2 million in federal grants funds. And then almost $7 million in other special revenues. And you can see that those revenues are made up of mostly U.S. government funds. Those are your impact aid funds, which are pretty wide open for spending, almost no restrictions, just like your general county money. So those two funds, 1.2 million and 1.7 million, those make up, it's called your local funds. At the bottom of each of these columns, you can see where you use $51,000 of fund balance in general, only $13,000 left, and you added $180,000 of fund balance in Fund 8 in that other special revenue. So when you combine those, like we talked about, you really added $130,000 of fund balance this year. And we've seen that across the state this past year. With COVID, there are a certain amount of savings, COVID savings. There are new funding sources available to help offset some of these extra COVID expenditures. And so statewide, of the 16 districts I audit, all but one added fund balance this year. So I think this is extremely appropriate. I think there's even more funding sources in 21 into 22 and the 23 year, 2021, 2022. All those funding sources should be utilized to the extent that they can be and save local funds, because the long-term impact of this is, I think, really unknown. We're looking at this almost comparing it to back in 2008 when there was ARPA money. The district was flooded with cash. It's our cash, you spent it, and then it was gone. And how do you maintain some of those programs or some of those positions that might have been created? And so after the flooding of money, fund balance had to be used, had to be utilized. So the key now is to add as much fund balance now in the next year, 2, 3 years, because again, long-term impact, economic outlook, the counties, their revenue sources are not going to be the same during this pandemic. It will take a while, I think, to see the true full impact of this. And so adding as much fund balance now, I think, is just a smart way to approach finances over the next couple of years. So having $130,000, I think is extremely appropriate and a good thing, so. Any questions? You also added $78,000 of fund balance in the capital outlay fund. You only had $1,500 there to begin with, so now you're up to almost $80,000. And then your individual schools, you've got $500,000 of fund balance available at your three schools. So those are your governmental funds. We have one more fund, the School Food Service Fund. This is considered a business type fund. So it's not governmental, it's a business type fund because it operates to sell product. It sells food. It is tough to make money in a small district selling food. It takes people to cook, it takes overhead, it takes a director, and if you don't have a certain level of participation, if you don't have 2,000 students eating, it's a struggle to cover just the basic bare minimum salaries you need to operate a kitchen. So you've struggled to maintain profits in child nutrition over the last 10 years. It has improved over the last few years, but this year you actually created more profit than normal. You actually added $59,000 of cash this year. And that's because when COVID hit, all of the feeding converted over to a summer feeding program, which gives you higher reimbursements. It's easier to maintain participation with those reimbursement levels, even though participation goes down because the kids aren't coming to the cafeteria, but there are ways to get food in front of students, whether it's delivery or pickup. But the main thing is there's also some of these COVID funding sources were initially directed right at child nutrition because once you shut down a cafeteria, you want to keep those employees paid. Where does the money come from? So some of those initial COVID sources were directly aimed at child nutrition and allowed you to add that $59,000 of cash. It'll be very interesting to see how 2021 stacks up. I have no idea yet. It's going to vary from district to district, depending on how aggressive you are at providing meals, getting meals delivered, getting meals picked up, and then also what kind of virtual / in-person pickup or makeup you have. We have some districts that are operating at various levels of capacity, and so that's going to obviously hurt participation. Also, whether you can utilize some of the staff in other ways to save expenditure. So I've not begun to even see how 2021 stacks up, but I just know it's going to be a wide gambit of some making profit and some losing quite a bit. I've got several larger districts that were not aggressive enough early on in taking meals out to the community or creating pickup sites, and to continue to pay staff and not have participation go down in half, it just burns through cash. So again, it'll be interesting to see where that stacks up. If you were able to add $59,000 this year, so that's probably the most money you've made in a long time in child nutrition. Any questions there? Well, the rest of it is footnotes, accounting policies, a bunch of information about social pension and post-employment benefits. I will ask you to turn to page 60. Page 60 starts the other letters related to our opinion, basically. We look at page 1, that was the opinion of the financial statements. Page 60 starts 6 pages, 3 letters. One of them is on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, stating that we had no deficiencies, no material weaknesses in internal controls. And then the other 2 are compliance letters. One's for state compliance and one's for federal. basically saying that the programs that we audited as major, which was your state public school funds, you have to do every year, and impact aid, which was your federal program we audited. Both of those, we noted no instances of question cost or misappropriation or spending it outside of terms or terms outlined in each of those programs. So those are, again, 2 unmodified clean opinion letters and an internal control letter with no findings. So an overall good. That's all I have. I appreciate your time. We always enjoy coming out here. I've used districts all over the state. This is by far my furthest west, but we love coming out here, and we've got a great staff, and we appreciate all the work you put in so can come in and do the audit in 3.5 days. We come twice a year. Once during the spring to do compliance testing, and once after you ready to do financial statement part. And we'll actually be back in a month to start the compliance. We're presenting a little late. Last month I was supposed to be here about the same time as maybe a snowstorm. Probably could have come, but also we did have the manager letter comment, and there were some other things that we were watching after year end to make sure we didn't have any other issues. So I don't anticipate that this year. And actually, DPI is looking at getting rid of installments, which I think is part of what we were watching after year end. So we did spend a little bit of extra time after year end waiting for. We wanted to look at some of your state and federal bank recons after year end. So we just went a little longer this year just to track some information after year end to make sure that the only issue was this PRC 130, so that is part of why I'm here in March instead of October or November. So but I anticipate next year not having it laying new back here in October. So just a little information there, because again, this isn't the typical time I'm here. But, I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions ever, we're here twice a year, and we do this all year long. Feel free to call me, Lester has all my contact information, and happy to talk about these statements or anything else school related. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Adam, thank you. Have a safe trip.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, you're next on the agenda. That's the budget amendments.
Lester, will you start by just explaining these 30 seconds what they're thinking about with installments?
The way the installments work, we have 10-month employees, and their pay gets spread out over 12 months. We call those installment pay. For us, our installment months are June and July, okay? And the issue he was talking about with bank recons, state recons, when you have an installment that's paid in July, and it's actually supposed to be booked or coded back in the previous fiscal year, that can cause some issues on the balance sheet. So they were going to watch that to see how our bank recons looked for several months after June 30. But the point that you wanted to make is the state is considering ending those installment payments. That means that 10-month employees will get 10 checks as opposed to 12. Now, those employees have the opportunity to do what's called summer cash through the State Police Credit Union or through their bank. But basically, if that does become law, then that will take that equation of those installments having issues with our balance balance on June 30th and having to roll those expenditures back. That will take that out of the picture. So it will even be a cleaner audit. And a lot of the finance officers in Region 8 in our region, when we receive this email, I mean, you could hear cheers across the state from finance officers and their staff and their payroll staff. Because this takes a lot of work out. These installments can be difficult at times.
We just have to work with the employees so we make sure they're set up in a seamless process so that, I mean, it's very hard to sometimes budget money, you know, and you're tempted if you get 10 checks to not put back. So we'll help them, we'll do some good education with them.
Sure.
And help them work it out with their personal banks or the credit union if they want to go ahead and split that into 12 months.
The thing about it is, they need to realize that if they get 10 checks,
They're
the
not
state's not getting those 2 months of interest you are.
Yeah, that'll help.
You know what I mean? It's not a lot, but I put mine in 10 months, and if it has a little more interest if you had your bank instead of the state bank.
That's right.
Why are they changing that?
For what reason, I
Because
don't
it's
know.
been that way for years.
It's been that way for years, several, before my time, they tried it for a period of time, and people across the state were not happy with it, particularly your classroom teachers. You know, they have to make arrangements at the beginning of the year with their bank to have that money taken out of their check and saved for 10 months so that they can have cash flow for month 11 and 12. But the reason, I'm not sure, but if it does become law, I'm sure there'll be a lot of finance folks across the state's gonna be happy with
But
that.
just encourage them to come and get a little more interest.
Yeah.
And then we'll try our best.
We'll well educate them. If it does become law, let them know, you know, we'll help them with their finances and their bank. It's actually gonna be more their responsibility, but we'll help them all we can.
Thank you, Ezra.
Okay.
Okay, budget amendments, sir.
Okay. Now, I mentioned last month there were going to be several of these, and that is true. I'll go through them as quickly as I can. And stop me if you have any questions. I know we've got folks standing outside waiting to make their presentation. One thing that I'll mention, in the school budget, there are 6 separate funds, and this is for our new board members. It's just kind of a refresher. Fund number 1 is the State Public School Fund. Fund number 2 is Local Current Expense Fund. Fund number 3 is the Federal Fund. Fund number 4 is Capital Outlay. Fund number 5 is Child Nutrition. And fund number 8 is the fund that we account for our grants that we receive. So these budget amendments will cover 3 different funds. As I go through these, the first thing I'll mention will be line number 3. I'll let you know which fund these budget amendments are for. And as I skim down, if you look in the column description of code, 6 or 7 lines down, you'll see something in bold there that says PRC 56, Transportation. And this is just for your eyes to follow my descriptions of these budget amendments. Just above that PRC 56 Transportation, you'll see revenue. All right. You'll scan over to the right, you'll see in the credit column, $72,730. That's increased revenue that we received for transportation. All right. As I said, the rest of these are all budget amendments for the State Public School Fund. Next section down is PRC 28. This is Corona Relief Funds for home and community Wi-Fi. We received an additional allotment of $4,123. We plan to use that for software and supplies. Next section down is PRC 48, Test Results Bonus. The state took 52 cents away from us. They figure out how much those bonuses are going to be, and because Social Security doesn't round to the nearest dollar, we had 52 cents left over. Next section down is PRC 3, non-instructional support. We received an additional $150, and we plan to use that for substitute pay. And the next section down is PRC 15, School Technology Fund. Received an additional $24, and plan to use that for supplies and materials. Any questions about those? Okay, next page, this is also a budget amendment for the state public school fund. This is for PRC 73, school connectivity. We received $3,000 and plan to use that for telephone bills. Okay, now we're going to get into budget amendments for the federal fund. I think there are 3 pages of these. First section down is PRC 17, vocational education programs. We received an additional $1,984. We plan to use a majority of that for supplies and materials. Next section down is PRC 50, Title 1. We received an additional $6,920. And because of some reductions in insurance this year, just for state employees, not the insurance for their family or spouse or children, there was a reduction in the cost of health insurance. You will see that in the second line there's a reduction in insurance within this particular PRC of approximately $2,400. So those savings, we can, of the $6,920 plus the savings in the insurance and a couple of line items there, we plan to use approximately $9,000 for supplies and materials. Next section down, PRC 103, Title 2, improving teacher quality. We actually had a reduction in our funding there of $942, and we plan to take away from the budget there amounts that we spend for insurance and supplies and materials. Any questions on the budget amendments on that page? Okay, next page. These are also budget amendments for the federal fund, PRC 49, IDEA Title 6B, received additional revenue of $3,313.93 and plan to use the majority of that for supplies and materials. Next section down is PRC 114, Children with Special Needs. This is the entire allotment for the year. We usually receive this in January. It's $88,908, and these funds are used for 3 teacher assistants that help with special needs kids. So that is
one-on-one.
right. And the next section down is PRC 118, IDEA 6B, special needs. These funds are targeted mostly for workshop expense and supplies and materials. But we received an additional $4,500. And the last page of budget amendments, the federal fund, first section there is PRC 60, IDEA 6B. This is not additional revenue. This is the carryover from last fiscal year. Federal funds do allow carryover. And the way that DPI wants us to do our federal budgets, we budget the allotment, and then once they approve the carryover from the previous year, then we do a budget amendment to add that carryover to our current budget. So this is just a carryover from fiscal year 20. But that carryover is $76,347.58, and we plan to use the majority of that for contract services, workshop expense, and instructional supplies, because we've already budgeted our salary benefits for this year. The next section down is PRC 82. This is IDEA 6B State Improvement. We received additional revenue there of $7,360. And this particular pot money is used mostly for workshop expense.
Back up there on that other one, EC workshop expense and EC contract service, EC, is that?
Exceptional children.
That's what I thought.
And they do a lot of their reading and math foundation training, aid to the kids.
Okay.
Okay, that's all the budget amendments for the federal fund. We'll start now with budget amendments for Fund 8, where we account for our grants. This first page, both budget amendments are in relation to PRC 311. This is Gear Up. Now, Gear Up, we'll back up. As you know, our fiscal year goes July 1 through June 30th. Gear Up's grant year is October 1 through September 30th. It's actually 9/25. Why they came up with that date, I don't know, but for booking purposes, it's October 1 through September 30th. This first budget amendment there, where you see there where Gear Up, revenue for Gear Up, the debit column is $64,000. Those were funds that we were not able to spend last year for two purposes. COVID, all right, we were not able to do college visits. And we also placed an order in July for 100 Chromebooks. And because of demand, we have not had those Chromebooks delivered at this time. So Gear Up's going to allow us to still purchase those. So we're not going to lose those funds. We'll just add that in negotiations to the upcoming budget. But this budget amendment basically takes those unspent funds from last fiscal year and backs them out of the budget. All right, and what we do as of October 1, the second section, if you look there under the revenue, it's $146,143.03. That's our new budget. So you have to back those unbudgeted funds out and start over with the new budget.
This is the new budget.
The new budget is the second section, 146,000.
So we're still gonna be able to use these.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, is that including the 64,000?
Right.
No, just the cost of the Chromebooks, which is 29,000. And we still have to negotiate with Gear Up whether we can add that 29,000 to this new budget or whether we got to eat.
Whether we got what?
Whether we have to eat that loss because the Chromebooks were not shipped to us on time.
We paid for it, right?
No, we have not paid. We
We haven't
ordered them.
got them. We're waiting to see when we get them.
It's supposed to be delivered March 9th.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have to say, they're here, so Europe, can we use Europe money to pay for them? I anticipate they probably will, but they're just gonna have to make that decision once we get them.
Sure. Okay, any questions about these budget amendments on Gear Up? That was a lot on that.
So remember our second Europe grant, we just got back to that, and they'll start giving sixth grade and work that right with 6, 7, 8.
Okay, one more budget amendment. This is also budget amendments to Fund 8. There are two budget amendments here, PRC 663, ARC WCU STEM grant. The amount there is $9,747. I plan to use that for subs, stipends, workshop expense, supplies and materials, and some equipment. And then the last section there is PRC 64. This is a STEM E grant. There's $8,000 there. And plan to use that for subs, workshop participants, workshop expense, and supplies and materials. Both of these grants are applied for and being overseen by my involvement. So any questions about the budget amendments? I did mention last month that we would have a lot of budget amendments to get all these federal budgets caught up to date. One thing I do want to mention, typically, I do give the expenditure reports. I have those, but the most important thing on those reports that I wanted to mention is where we are in relation to our budget, whether we're over budget, whether we're under budget, and, this formula is based on assuming that we're having, now that we've finished 8 months on the books, we've got 8 equal amounts of expenditures during the year. That's how I do this formula. But currently in the state public school fund, we are right on par. We're not over budget, not under budget. So the local current expense funds, we're under budget by 1%. We're over budget by 1% on local. Federal fund, we're over budget by 1%. Capital outlay, which is big ticket items, and usually follow this formula, we're under budget by 30%. Child nutrition, we're under budget by 25%. And a lot of that is because of the premium rate that we're receiving during this summer feeding program. The rate per meal that we receive really helps. And on Fund 8, where we have all the grants, we're under budget by 2%. Any questions about the budget amendments, the audit?
No, but I do want to say, Lester, that how much I appreciate you and your department for what y'all do to make sure that we have a clean audit and just the past year that we've been in a pandemic and had all this extra money in, it's nice to have extra money. It's a bad reason to have it, but, you know, I do commend y'all on how hard you've worked to make sure that you've accounted for all that the way it needed to be accounted for. It's been a lot of extra work. Compliments to Denise Moody's not in here, but like, they've been able to work really hard too with the child nutrition program and save some of that money. And part of that due to COVID, part of it is she's made some changes in her staffing and the way that she runs the program to allow for us to break even and make return on the profit.
And some of those changes that she made were recommendations from our auditors,
Yes.
so they've been a big help for us.
This month, July to June, right?
Yes, July to June. But I also want to mention, since the audit, and I typically always do this when the audit's over, I just want to thank some folks that's in our financial staff. I mean, Susie Beasley does accounts payable. Now, she wears a lot more hats, but I'm going to mention some of these folks and what they do. But I appreciate Susie with accounts payable. Nikki Gibbs, she processes payroll. Kim Beasley, she processes the e-procurement orders. And we've already mentioned Denise Moody and her staff, they do a great job. But we've also got 3 treasurers at the individual schools. We've got Lynette Anderson at the elementary, you've got Karen Hedrick at the middle school, and we had Donna Hyde at the high school, but congratulations for her on her time. But they all do a great job, and I just wanted to mention them for the job they do when it comes to our finances. As well as Patrick Nichols down at maintenance, Chris and Barbara over at the bus garage. You've got Rhonda Anderson and Deb Stewart, a
I mean,
CPE.
all of our department heads are towards money.
They really,
And counting and they're, for what they're doing, do their own budgets and everybody works very hard together.
yeah, I just want to say I appreciate all of it.
Thank you, Lester. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Principal and director updates. What else we do? Anybody that's out?
Good morning.
David, just a second.
Okay.
It's my fault.
All right.
Do I have a motion to approve the budget amendments just presented by Mr. Green? Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, David. Thank you for waiting.
All right, so things are going pretty good at the high school. A few things coming up tomorrow. We have our senior sunrise celebration, where our senior class has been invited down. Starts at 9 o'clock. We'd like to invite the board to come. We've got a couple of people that will be speaking, kind of motivational talks. David Haney is one. Crystal White's going to speak. We had Todd Owen scheduled, but he has COVID, so he's had to cancel. Then we're going to have a pancake breakfast after that. So I'd love for the board to come down if you'd like to. We had 3 students that were awarded the Horatio Alger State Scholarship worth $10,000. This is the first time that RHS has ever had a student win the Horatio Alger. And they were Colby Brooks, Haley Cates, and Christine Lancaster. So very proud of them and happy for them to get that $10,000 to help toward their college. We have set a graduation date. Graduation will be on Sunday, May the 23rd at 7 p.m. at Mobile Walsh Memorial Stadium. And we are also going to have a baccalaureate service. I talked with Rand Schubert, First Baptist, yesterday, and he's going to contact the Grand Baptist Association. But we're going to also have a baccalaureate at the football stadium. And we'll set our students in the middle section, allow parents to come in and sit on each side, and then we'll have a speaker down on the field. That way we can do that. We kind of missed that last year with the senior class, and want to make sure we can do that. And that'll be on Wednesday, May the 19th at 7. Girls basketball team had a tremendous season, won the Smoky Mountain Conference Championship. And unfortunately, we were put out in playoffs on Saturday, and they finished 15-2. Very proud of Coach Ford and all those girls for the season that they had. Were a lot of fun to watch. We started football season last Thursday against Rosamond with 100 fans. Luckily, on Friday, things changed, and we are going to be able to have some more fans at the games. And I have a handout I would like to give the board that kind of tells how we're going to distribute tickets for the homecoming game next week and the game at Hayesville on Friday.
Homecoming is next week.
Homecoming is next week against Irving, and we will have a homecoming parade at 3 o'clock next week, and then the game time is at 6 next week, so it's an early game against Irving. But so this week for the Hayesville game, originally they gave us 150 tickets, and we divided those tickets among the varsity football players and the cheerleaders. So we didn't think we were going to have any tickets to sell to the community. But this morning they called and said we could go ahead and sell 100 tickets. So we're going to have the high school office open from 1 to 4 tomorrow to sell those 100 extra tickets. There is a possibility they could have tickets at the gate also for sale, but it's homecoming at Hayesville. So we're not sure, but we do appreciate the 250 that they gave us, and that is most teams I think are going to give 150. So we'll be very lucky as many fans get to travel to the away games other than just parents usually. So for next week for the homecoming game, Jacob Nelms has done the fire code standard for our stadium, and we were allowed to have 874 people or tickets sold plus our workers. We will give 150 tickets to the visiting school. And then we've set aside tickets for the players, the cheerleaders, the band. Next week will be a little different because it is homecoming, so I've set aside tickets for the homecoming court also for the girls and escorts. And then we'll have tickets that we sell to the community. Students will be able to purchase tickets anytime during the school day in the high school office, but we're only going to allow the community to come in and buy tickets in the afternoons. So, and a student ticket, if they come in, they can only buy one ticket for themselves, or the players can come in and buy their passes for their family, and that's all. So the community tickets, I put the times down there that we'll sell only after students are all off of campus. We'll allow the community to come in and purchase tickets, and then we will stop selling tickets at 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. And the reason I'm stopping at 3 is because Miss Carpenter, who our finance manager is selling the tickets, her son is a JV football player, so it wouldn't be fair to make her stay before if she has to travel and things like that. So, we're going to stop selling on Thursday at 3. Then any tickets that are left over from that point, we will put that on the RHF website and the Facebook page, and we will sell them at the ticket booth, first come, first serve, the day of the game. All right, so and now we're only going to sell tickets at the lower booth, and we're going to have the upper gate open, but it will be for passes and pre-sale tickets only. So if they have a ticket, they can come in. If they have a pass, they can come in up there. If you have to purchase a ticket, it will be down at the lower gate. Okay?
So, do you all honor state passes?
We will honor like state administrative passes. Yes, we will do that. Now, it's questionable about our number, but I think we'll be fine, as far as doing that.
So will you honor the recent issue passes?
I will honor that for our board. Yes, I will. For whoever has them in the school district.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my question is about community tickets. When they purchase those tickets, is there a limit on the quantity that they can purchase at a time? So that one person doesn't come in and order and say, I'll take 290 tickets? Theoretically.
Right. I have not put a limit on that. I mean, I'm willing to do that if the board thinks that's a good idea.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, the reason I have is because, some families are 8 and some families are 3, and.
I wouldn't want that to exceed a reasonable number.
Right.
That would
If
be-
someone come in and buy 20 tickets, I'm going to question.
I think that I would not want it to exceed, figure out what your reasonable number is,
Okay.
and then that way you don't have one person buying a huge chunk.
And I really worry about someone trying to purchase tickets and resell them at a higher price too, because,
There's nothing you can do about it.
no. On the back of this sheet, does anybody have any other questions about how we're
Yeah,
going
the
to do it?
tickets, they'll only come to the lower gate, we're not pushing everybody through that,
No,
just the passes.
yeah, just passes, yeah. Okay. On the back, it talks about the JV game, and, we're not sure what we're gonna do here yet, but at Murphy this week, there is no limit on the ticket sales for the JV game, because, they said they've never had, I think their limit's 1,000 people, they've never had 1,000 people at the JV game, so they didn't feel like there was any need to set a limit there. And we probably never had 874 at the JV game either, so, we'll take a look at that. We will definitely probably pre-sale to our players and stuff. And, you know, and only one gate will be open for the JV games like it always has been. But it gives the time for selling JV tickets also.
Let me ask you this, or at some point in time, I heard this, that you had to buy a ticket for all the games, so we are gonna be selling tickets for
Individual,
individual
yes.
games.
Now, in the beginning, when we were selling passes, and we still will sell passes to players. So if a player or cheerleader or band member comes in and says, I'd like to go ahead and buy mine for all the games,
Okay,
we have a pass for them.
okay,
But that's the only passes we're selling. It has to go to a football player, cheerleader, or band.
okay.
Okay?
Well,
So football players end up with 4 passes when they purchase 2 more. The cheerleaders have 2 passes that they can get, and the band has 40 passes total for the band, because a lot of their parents work the concession stand too, so they don't all necessarily need a pass to get in. So one, you know, family about one parent's working the concession stand, and the other one's in the stadium, so.
Yeah, the concession stand wasn't open for the Rosman game, was it? Or was
It
it?
was, yes.
It was?
It was, yes.
Okay,
And it will be open on both sides from this point forward, yes.
okay.
So the quarterback club runs the visitor side, and the band runs the home side. Yes.
regularly, we can regulate students buying tickets and selling them, or buying students.
I mean, I don't know how I can do
I mean,
that.
just students, if we find out, no, I know we can't do that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know that we can do that. I know there were some issues this past game, some passes were bought, and then the players sold them to other players, and it caused some confusion, but once we sell that ticket,
That's
you know, it's just, it's used to getting the game, whoever who possesses it, we're gonna let in, there's not really anything we can do to regulate that. But I have had some phone calls about it.
That's true.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank y'all.
Thank you, Dave.
Good morning.
Come in, Tony.
How is everybody? So, not much has changed, it seems like it happened a month went by really fast this time. Short month. Short month, yes. But, middle school is finishing up check-ins, so we have finished with all the students except did some makeups today, and then we've got all of our remote kids that are coming in tomorrow. And so the check-ins give us some information about where the kids are with the standards that the teachers have taught. Because we're only seeing the kids on AB schedule, the teachers have found that they're not as far along in the curriculum that they usually are. But it is providing them with some good information about where to go for the rest of the year. We have had 4 new students in the last week and a half. So, that has been interesting, and all of those students that we have that are new have been in places where they have been fully remote. So it's interesting, really interesting to see how far along they are. As of this morning, we have a waiting list of 10 students that are hoping to go 4 days. After Christmas, we brought back as many students as we could safely. And so right now we have about 10 more students that are requesting that they come 4 days that we were not able to accommodate this class size. Yesterday we had softball tryouts, and she had 21 girls that went out. She was able to keep 14. So I think she's really building a program, and Joanne and Billy have, I think, played part in that, and the girls softball team has been successful. But that was the first time anybody in middle school could actually remember that they had to cut girls, which is never good, but, you know, they had a large number go out. We have 11 students that are at the academy. So some of those students were kids that had been remote and they were not being successful, and so they came back 2 days a week. And our middle school boys finished up their season, and they were the second best, had the second best record in the conference with a 9-2. So that's what's going on in the middle school.
Thank you, Tanya. Anybody got any questions for Ms. Wallace?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. At the elementary school, we are plugging right along, and this week we're having rock and read at the elementary auditorium, and it's for pre-K through 6th grade. Students get to come in, peruse books, take books home on parent nights. They get to choose another book, and of course the idea behind doing this this whole program with Rock and Read is because of what we know with our Title I money and things with children in poverty, is that a lot of times children who come from a household of poverty doesn't have the same access to literature in their home as middle and upper class children, and so this kind of bridges some of that gap. And the kids love it every year, and this year it's Winnie the Pooh, and everybody's just having a really good time with that. We had parent-teacher conferences last week, and it was a little bit different parent-teacher conference because it was also a remote learning day. And we also had teachers going in and out to get vaccines at the Graham County Health Department, so it was a busy day. But even with that busy day, we still had a better turnout in overall contact with parents for this second parent-teacher conference of the year than we do on most regular school years. Our teachers really made an effort to reach out and make contact with just about every parent, but we had about 30% of our parents across the board, when I talked to the teachers, just as a general rule, that was initiating that contact with the school that day for parent-teacher conference. Of course, it was phone call or virtual meeting for the most part, but we had a very good parent-teacher conference turnout. And I'm going to be involved with Ms. Chrissy Cable on March the 11th. We're going to have a Title I audit. That's a federal audit. We've been getting different things together to be prepared. They're going to do some parent interviews. They're interviewing different teachers. Of course, they're interviewing us. It'll all be virtual. But I just can't explain the benefit that this Title I money gives to my elementary school. And so we're working very hard to make sure that audit goes very well. So do you all have any questions for me about anything at the elementary?
The rock and read is the 10th, 4 to 6.
Parent night, yes.
Next week.
Okay, that is, yes.
And it'll be a drop through.
Yes. And I asked Ms. Buchanan, she said that she has a good list of helpers already prepared, but of course, you know, if any of you want to come volunteer or just come out to see it, of course, you're always welcome. So, anything else? All right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mayor.
Come in,
My name is
Christy.
Christy Cable, Deputy Programs Director. Just a few things that's going on in my world. One of the biggest things is Ms. Superman mentioned is we're getting ready to go through a consolidated audit of all of our federal programs, which is Title I, Title II, Title IV, and rural low income schools. So that's kind of kept us really busy. Getting all the documents that are needed to upload into the DPI system by Friday. And then on March the 11th, we have a list of an agenda where they will be interviewing our teachers, our principals, our central office staff, and parents across the county. So got that going on. Of course, we've got Rock and Read that's going on that we're real proud of. We give away a lot of books to our elementary school and our kids. We also have parent night next week, which is next Wednesday from 4 to 6. We're going to have a drive-through coming around where we feed all the parents and families, and they come through and get their packets and we'll get their literature. And we've got that
spent a lot of work into that, making sure that the children are getting on our Lexall reading level. So we've very proud of our intervention and reading team for the work and effort that they are putting into that. In a way of exceptional children, I wanted to mention we are experiencing more and more of kids with high needs. Of course, we've talked about this before. In our preschool level, we have got one of the highest number of exceptional children that we've had since I have been here. Very high level needs that are requiring extensive support. We were funded again with 3 additional teacher assistants this year, which was equivalent to over $9,000 to help us with the high need of the students. In K-12 next year, we're looking at one of our largest classrooms as far as kids with autism and severe developmental delay. In lieu of that, exceptional children, we are seeking all the training that we can across the state, working with our DPI consultants and trying to find all that we can in regard to autism and also the uprising of children identified with dyslexia. So we've got our intervention team going and our exceptional children staff going to training this school year, trying to learn all we can to identify those children and make sure that we're serving them to the best of our capacity. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we intend to have a summer camp due to all of the remote learning that we have had and children not able to access what they have needed at home. So we have got money through Exceptional Children to pretty well run an extensive camp all summer long that we're going to offer to all exceptional children if they want it. That is in the work. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that we will, someone that may have already mentioned it, but we're losing one of our great teachers at our high school, with Melissa Mooney, is exceptional children teacher going to Avery County, where we really miss her. We plan to put in a long-term assistant in actually for the remainder of the year. He was really acclimated to that class and works well with that population to get us to the end of the year. So I hate to lose her as part of our staff, but it appears in the next few years we'll have a high turnover in our field, and we're eagerly encouraging faculty to go back and to get the training they need in exceptional children, hopefully fill some vacancies.
Did you say who's reading?
Melissa Mooney. She will be leaving Friday till I say. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Can any of that money go towards the summer learning program? Yes, she's doing her part of it. Yeah, that's all, it's part of what she's paying for is with COVID money. Because it's designated for this, for that.
Go.
Hi. Good to see everybody. Okay, Gear Up. Gear Up 1.0, we just had our boot camp for the ACT. It was very successful. The weather tried to keep us from it. So we ended up doing cohort A one week and cohort B a different week. But it all turned out great. The kids learned a lot, had a good time. We just got back our scores from the ACT. They're not stellar, but they're up there. We're doing well. Credit recovery, I've got more kids signing up, trying to get it done. We're very proud that they're finally accepting and coming for that. We're still doing homework help, of course, and we've got quite a few signing up now, all of a sudden starting to realize, whoa, it's getting towards the end of the year. I think especially when they heard the graduation date from the announcements this morning. Gear Up 2.0 is rolling out. I've met with the middle school principals. I've met with the 6th grade teachers, and we're figuring out what the best way is for us to have Gear Up introduced. I start going into elementary school 6th grade next week. We have surveys that are going out to all the students to make sure they're done when I go into the kickoff. I'm going to have them do the survey. It's like an after class thing for them to make sure they've done it. When I go in, Gear Up, too much stuff. Gear Up has sent tags for every 6th grader and every 7th grader. It's packed full of information about college. There's some pins and stickers in it. Tutor.com, which is a big item for Garrett to pay for. 6th grade and 7th grade are already signed up and enrolled and active, but they're not using it yet.
Just a little bit about Tutor.com, because it's a great resource.
Okay. Tutor.com is through Princeton. It's an online tutoring system for any subject. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for the night owl that stayed up and didn't get their assignment done or thinks they need a little assistance, it's open for them. They can even do writing. I have a classroom this week who are turning in their writing assignments to Tutor.com. They're juniors. They're turning in 5 at a time, and different tutors will read them and give them options and give a few ideas they think they need to do. They don't actually do the work for them, but they do coach them through it. If a student has been on what they think is an extended time period, or they've called in or texted in rather several times, they will send an alert to me. And I in turn tell the teacher, this kid's been on there for over an hour for a certain math problem or a concept in writing they don't seem to understand. And that's helped immensely. They can also go in, I can, and send it to the teacher. I can see the whole conversation. Okay, so it's very well guarded. Sometimes they'll hang up from one tutor they didn't understand, and they'll get back on and connect with another one until they find somebody. It's a live person right there, and they are Princeton graduate students. So everybody seems to take advantage of it, we hope. Sometimes it's like a little off because it looks like they're getting back in there from the stats I get. I get information on it, and that is paid through Garrett. So we hope to kick off the Tutor.com and the new Garrett program. And then they've asked me to tell you our dual enrollment through Graham County is wonderful for Robbinsville High School. Tri-County is sending home these cinch bags. We just got them in, and they're going to go home with every Tri-County student. There's Germex in here. I noticed they want little gadgets that you can use at the gas pump and open the doors, things like that. So I don't know if they use the COVID money for whatever, but we got these in and we're handing them out to Tri-County students. Speaking real quickly about the dual enrollment, we have found out we can use it for match. And for one semester alone, I got the figures yesterday for our RHS students, $45,752 will be used in match to Garrett. And I talked to Corinne last night before I went home, and she was very excited about that amount. They're doing great with our dual enrollment.
Yes, our kids will be able to have the opportunity to dual enroll with Tri-County or, and be able to get those credits prior to them graduating. I know we've got kids that are graduating, you know, they already have a 2-year degree, a college degree by the time they leave here, their certifications by the time they leave our campus. So that puts them in a much better place to start college and a much cheaper.
Much cheaper rate for them too.
That's right.
As well, because there again, that's what the state paid for our kids that they did not have to come out of pocket. It's great. And
Now, the tutor.com, is it for, what grades right now?
right now it's 10, 11, and 12.
And you're gonna pick up?
And I'm working on figuring out how we can get 9th grade in there. It's in the process,
Okay.
yeah. I spoke to our rep last week, we're trying to, because 8th and 9th grade right now are not going to be officially in our new cohort, but they're trying to figure out how we can still serve them with it. I know that's my concern. Yeah. Okay, y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Bye.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's not, I think it's here.
Yes, I'm in the bathroom. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So good morning. I just have a few very small, quick announcements for preschool. We are at the very busy stage of preschool between now and the end of the school year and even into the very first parts of summer, we will have a lot of activity with preschool applications. I received word and feedback from our Region A representative that right now our application is at the translator's office. They work diligently to make sure that we both have an English copy as well as a Spanish copy of the application so that we can put those in the family's hands. And I suspect hopefully in about another week we should be able to publish those out to our community for anybody that would want an application for the next school year. We do have a teacher out right now. Ms. Regina Webster is out on total knee replacement. I had a chance to check on her this morning. She is healing very slowly. She said she had anticipated that she would be in much better shape at this point. She is trying to follow her therapy schedule very rigidly, but it probably will be another several weeks before she's able to return to us. Shifting gears here a little bit, it feels like there's always a new mandate or some kind of new requirement that comes down from the Department of Health and Human Services. Our newest sort of hurdle that we need to jump through is what we consider the new requirements for lead testing. So I will be partnering with maintenance over the next probably 3 weeks. We will watch a webinar, and in that webinar, it will walk us through all the steps that we need to do to collect water samples and then turn that into the state. So all 3 centers have to be collected, and we will have to have it done by April the 1st. And then finally, my last announcement is just that the flurry of activity that you will hear for pre-K. We've got preschool registration. We do not have a date set yet, and we really don't know how we will manage to roll all of that out with COVID. In times past, we've been able to utilize the lower gym. This year, if we are able to do that, we will comply with, of course, all the restrictions for personal space and all of that. Shortly in there, around that same time, we will have kindergarten registration. We anticipate that we will have moving up to big school night, where we take our students who are in pre-K now and we begin transitioning them to what life is like in the kindergarten building. We will hope to have some type of preschool graduation. Not sure exactly how we will conduct that just yet. And then the last 2 announcements that we have is that this is also the critical time for students who are in pre-K that have IEPs, students who have some exceptionalities. We begin taking those plans for students, and we begin meeting with the elementary staff to say, in the next few months you're going to be inheriting this child, and these are the needs that they have spelled out by their plan. And then in the third week of July, we start extended school year, and that will run to the very end of July. And we will have those students on campus with us that have the most significant needs that might fall behind if they don't have opportunities to have outdoor speech therapy, occupational therapy, things that would need to be in place for them so that they don't regress over the summer. So that's the preschool world between now and July. It will be very busy.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Do y'all have any questions for me? I think I mentioned in the last board meeting that I was with you that this particular year they will not come on to campus. Region A will not be coming to campus to do the site monitoring visit. Always before they have come and audited records, they have interviewed teachers. Because of COVID, that will not take place on campus this year. Having said that, though, I'm still responsible for making sure that all materials are in their hands by Friday. So Thursday afternoon, I'm going to drive after work and drop that material off to our representative from Region A. I've already made plans to meet her, and we'll have everything that's in our audit packet available for them to review. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Ms. Williams does a great job.
Yes, she does. I know she does.
If you're not familiar with preschool regulations, they do everything from the temperature of the water, they measure chips to make sure that the chips on the playground are the right height. It is just very consuming.
Good morning, everybody. I have 21st century update. As of yesterday, we served 146 kids in the after school. RES has 34 enrolled, and the middle school has 112 enrolled. Out of the 34 at the elementary school, 19 of them already have their 30 days in. And at middle school, 23 of them already have their 30 days in. Our Valentine's self-care party was a success. We all enjoyed that. And we will be part of the Rock and Read drive-through on March 10th. We have a statewide meeting coming up on Friday, March 5th to find out how the HB 82 is gonna affect 21st Century Pro summer programs.
So right now, if the House bill that's going through to have 6 weeks of summer school, comes to fruition, we're not sure how that's gonna affect our typical 21st century summer school, because that's supposed to be a supplementary program. And so we're trying to figure out how all that's gonna tie together, and who's gonna work it if both of us are funded at the same time.
And once we find that out, we're gonna set up with a meeting with Toccoa Valley to find out if they're gonna be able to have some programming this year. And then on February 23rd, it was announced that there is a pending, and I stress pending, for a cohort 15, which if it's approved, then there will be a 3-year grant running from 2021 to 2024. And if they do approve it, the open date will be March 29th, the close date will be May 13th, and they will make the award notifications in August of 2021.
So it is we anticipate that if that does open up, the grant process, that we will certainly be writing a grant.
Yes.
And submitting that, and hope to get the after school program to continue, because we get so spoiled and there's so many good things with it this 3 years that we've had it. It would be terrible for our families to lose that opportunity right now. So, but that's a federal grant, and so I will be, I guess, the grant writer for that, and I will be a little bit busy from the end of March till May till that. With conjunction with a lot of good help.
And the last thing on here, when I took this position, I agreed to keep it until the end of the grant. And so September 30th, when the current grant ends, will be my last day.
And Ms. Hallfield has been such a fine employee for us, and we're really excited about your retirement for you. We'll miss you, but we're excited about your retirement.
So much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Hallfield.
Kim's here about facilities, you want to do now or wait till line items? You want to do line items?
He can do one out of three.
So just keep it till
That'd be
then.
fine.
That's good.
Okay.
Myra Waldron out here?
Yeah, she's here, but she's next on the agenda.
Yeah,
You ready for her?
yeah, ready for you. She's here for, I don't know how to pronounce it, E-rate update, whatever that is.
You ready? It's a business.
Yeah, it is pretty bad.
All right, E-rate.
So the update is, out of the 200 emails I sent out, we got 3 bids back, which is good. Because a lot of people couldn't give us what we were needing. And, so I took those 3 bids and went over the matrix, the bid matrix that the state sent me to use. And out of those 3 bids, it'll be on course. Because they came in under and they gave us everything we need, all the products we need.
Myra, will you tell that for the purpose of the new board members what E-rate just generally is?
Okay, well, I did that last time, so.
But just a little recap.
A little recap of what E-rate is. It's a federal grant program that is the money that comes out of the, when you pay your power, or not power bill, but phone bill or whatever, it's those service fees. They have to go into a special fund, and then that special fund has to pay for, used to help pay for the phone bills and the network, now it's just all network stuff. for internet stuff. So that way the schools get it back and the libraries get that money back. And we apply for that. If it's Cat 2, which is internal connections like we're doing now, it's every 5 years, it's a 5-year cycle. If we had to pay for internet, then it would be every year. It's called Category 1. So, you know, it's just a big long process. So say coming this fall, if we had anything to do, we would start planning ahead for like 22, 23 school years. So you actually start a year ahead to plan for that. So once I send out the letter of intent, tell them on board that we accept their bid, and they will send a contract, and we'll have Andy sign the contract. And once that's done, then I have to file what's called 471 to let you know this is who I chose, this is what we're like. And then it goes through a PIA review, which is just the audit review, and they ask a bunch of questions. Sometimes within a month we get approved, the funding commitment is simulated. Sometimes it can take 6 months. They usually go with this new cycles. They're usually getting really good about getting it done quick. Hopefully it'll be done by July 1, and I'll be able to make it. Send in purchase order in this second. I can't order before
Do you
July
need a
1.
board motion to, is this something you need a board motion for?
Not really,
Because it's,
because this is through the CDPI, they did all the contracts, they did all that good stuff. We just have to kind of do a mini bit thing, so hey, this is what we're looking for, what can we do?
Okay.
So.
I understand God often that Myra understands this, and I don't have to know.
Amen.
And I still don't understand though, because it changes. It changes continuously. So, I mean, any questions, I'll try to answer them.
You said you had 3 bids. All right, and you chose which one?
Encore.
Encore?
Encore.
Okay.
So, out of 3,
For next year.
yeah, because the service year is the fiscal year, which is July, June, 30th, sorry, is later this year. So hopefully, if we get through PIA review, we can get it ordered by July 1, and there's not a shortage like there was in the past. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of it put in this summer before school starts. That's what we're hoping. Huh?
Good. Thank you, Myra. Appreciate it.
Y'all have a good day.
Okay. Personnel, Ms. Knight.
Yes, so during closed session, I will be reading these to name substitutes, volunteers, mentors, and some athletic staff. It's for the sports that haven't yet started, like baseball, and they're at youth and wrestling.
Okay. School calendar, Ms. Knight.
So at your folders, you have a copy of the school calendar. This is a review for those of you that haven't been with the school calendar. I'm not going to try mine, but
You need one?
no, it's out there. This bill. So just as a reminder, we have a certain amount of days that we have to put in the calendar that are instructional days. We have a certain, we either can do 185 instructional days or 1,025 instructional hours. We do 1,025 instructional hours in the calendar. And there's a committee from each of the schools that's really assigned to do this. I'm there and I guide them through the process. Actually, Nikki Gibbs is amazing to guide them through and count the days and all that for us. But we had to end up with the right amount of days and hours at the end of it. But very much this calendar reflects the beginning calendar we have for this year. We don't have any statutory guidance yet to add remote days into the calendar. We don't have any statutory guidance to look at, remote learning. We had to build a calendar like we think we're going to be doing August full time, which is, I hope that is exactly what we're doing. If not, we will amend the calendar. I'll bring it back to you if we need to. when we get further guidance, but the statutory guidance we have was, right now, it's like it had been, so that's what you have in front of you. It's really not very different than what you see, in a typical year.
Start early.
Well, you can start the Monday before the 19th because we have a waiver. So whatever the Monday is closest to.
The 16th.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, we do have a weather waiver. Allows us to sign one.
We need to vote on this, don't
We do need to vote on this.
we? Any questions before I call for the vote?
So school will start August 16th
For the students, yes.
for students.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the Graham County Schools 2021-22 school calendar? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, RMS construction progress.
Mr. White is going to be.
Oh, well, come on, Mr. White, I didn't know you were in there.
I actually have been doing some testing this morning, so I actually just got finished, so I'm able to come in. As far as the construction goes, last Tuesday, I believe, Mr. Knight, myself, Mr. Moody, we met with Scott Donald, Becky Garland, Jason Marino, Tanya, Chip Howe, virtually, basically, to talk to you and try to see what we can do about, what needed to be done next in order to get this process rolling along. During that meeting, Becky Garland did give us approval to move forward and get the contract signed, or start working to get the contract signed. Got in touch with Ms. Davis here, and we got a conversation, and so we ended up having a phone conversation with architects to discuss the contracts and some of the aspects of the contracts that Mrs. Davis wanted to look at. And basically, from what I understand, it's my assumption that after this contract, after the recommendations have been fixed in the contract itself, we're ready to sign and get moving.
And I've not read the email yet, but I did see that come in maybe yesterday.
It did.
It did, so
It's ready.
It's ready.
Yeah, I wasn't here yesterday, so I apologize.
So we actually might get that signed from Mr. Wilson today, but we don't need to put a motion, you've already voted on everything. It's just letting you know where we are in the process.
Yeah.
And, we'll go ahead, I'm still your thinker. Anything else about
No, as far as I know, we're ready to go.
the metal building that's gonna, replace the wood building for the shop has already been ordered. So we're just waiting for it to arrive and then they'll begin to pour the concrete pad for it and get it going. And, it will be actually in front of the bus garage. Who will put it up? They're not. We read that one.
I do have a big folder, a virtual folder. If anybody would like to see any of the specs, see any of the contracts, there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of stuff that we can get to you if you would like.
So once we actually get the process itself started, and then I think, and maybe it's not having into it, we will go back to having a monthly meeting about it, an update meeting, and so that will be the last Tuesday of the month, I believe, what we decided. We'll set a date when we do this pre-construction meeting, and then we'll have a monthly meeting so that we'll be able to give you an update.
We want to set it close to board meetings where we can give you updates from those meetings. But that's about it as far as the new construction goes. Just a couple of other things that I did want to mention to you guys. Remember when I gave you my report on the facility needs survey, we talked about the football field lights, and we're going to have to replace those for next year if we want to utilize our stadium for football games. Just wanted to give you a little information that I found out last week. The county did email Ms. Knight and ask for Mr. Walsh, the athletic director, to provide some information from the state, basically to determine that those lights that they need to be replaced. And so upon getting that information, I do think the Board of Commissioners is looking at it anyway as to helping us with
I
that.
may have a little bit more since
Okay.
you were out yesterday. So there will be a person coming to give, to do an analysis of our lots again and a summary of that, Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
And, county's invited to be a part of that as well, so that they can actually show them exactly what it is that's substandard of what we have now.
Where they coming from?
The company that actually gave us the quote on the lights. So I'm not sure I can quote that to you.
Are you saying that someone was supposed to come from the state saying what we had to have?
No, they
brought
sent
us
it
up
up.
compliance.
According to, if I'm not mistaken, it's North Carolina Department of Knowing, it's the High School Athletic Association.
Has some people that can come out and give you that estimate, and they're coming Wednesday.
That's the type, but the part that Ms. Garland was asking for to get to the commissioners was basically the statement saying that what we currently have is not, doesn't meet specifications
To hold play.
to hold playoffs.
And also, Mr. Moody and I were discussing, there's a wire that's running across the stands on the home side, and if that thing was to fall,
As soon as the big limb comes out of an oak tree.
Yeah.
Well,
we got people dying.
what about, what?
Lights or not, we need to look into fixing that.
But is that not, did you meet and said the county was willing to put the bill?
Well, they're willing to discuss it.
Yeah,
Okay.
They're willing to discuss the
They're looking not only lights for that, but lights for other fields in their fields.
That's true,
too.
I
So, Mr. Nelson's part of that,
right.
group as well.
I guess my whole intent of even bringing that up today was to simply let you know that it is moving forward. And so, we'll hopefully open the commissioners something next week, and then what's gonna happen. That's all I have as far as facilities. Can I backtrack and talk about testing for just a quick second? As some of you probably already know, the U.S. Department of Education released a statement last week about testing for this upcoming spring. In their statement, they did basically say that testing will occur. We will have testing. There will be there's no federal waivers. Now, as far as reporting goes, we won't be reporting. There'll be no federal reports, I guess. They did give us 3 considerations that we could look at as far as testing goes, and the three considerations were shorter tests, testing remotely, and then extending the testing windows. Now, that was the recommendations, or not recommendations, considerations that the federal government gave to the states. I attended a webinar last Friday evening, and basically with DPI, and DPI were going through the considerations. As far as shorter test goes, they say their psychometricians say that there's no way that we can shorten tests and cover all standards. So that's something that's not going to happen. The test will not be shortened. As far as remote testings, well, DPI said no. That's not going to happen. Which, in my opinion, I don't think that should happen anyway. But they did talk about extending the testing window, and as probably I mentioned to you before, the testing window from the fall semester at the high school has been extended. So that window is currently still open, from the December testing, and will be open through May. And so, as far as the consideration that goes from the U.S. Department of Education, it looks like the extended windows is one of the considerations that the DPI is looking to run with. But they will. The only information I got from the webinar the other day is they will advise as to what the windows are going to look like. So, and then I'm sure somebody, Mr. Madison, or somebody's probably already mentioned that we just finished the ACT last week. The makeup window will be, well, actually, the makeup date will be next Tuesday. And currently, that's where I was at this morning with the access for AILS. We do that's a test that we do for English learners every year, and so I'll be conducting those administrations over the next couple of weeks. So it's pretty busy right now. Anybody have any questions for me on testing, facilities? All right, well, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. White. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? At you.
Pursuant to the provisions of the North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 3, and 143-318.11, parentheses C, I move that the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session to receive advice from Ms. Ellen Davis, attorney for Graham County Board of Education, which advice comes within the purview of the attorney-client privilege. The advice will be general legal advice about legal issues or legal matters. Pursuant to the provision of the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses C, I move that the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of considering personnel matters as defined in the allowance in and allowed by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 6, and North Carolina General Statute 115C-321.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All in favor? Any opposed?
I recommend that you approve the resignation of Melissa Rooney.
Her last name again? Rooney.
Rooney.
Do I have a motion to accept Melissa Rooney's resignation? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
And I recommend that you approve the list of sports coaches and volunteers as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the sports coaches and volunteers as presented by Ms. Knight?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
That's all I have.
Do we have any announcements, Ms. Knight?
Your next regularly scheduled board meeting will be April 6th at 10 a.m. And we will not be doing training. Is that correct? Or we will?
May.
May. So, next meeting is April 6th at 10 a.m.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? All in favor?